Welcome back, everybody. I am Anna Muma. This is the Talk Bridal to Me podcast. I am here today with Heidi Wight of Ira and Lucy. She is a fantastic wedding planner in the Idaho area, and she is here to talk with us today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to hang out with you.
Yes, it's so good. I know we've been trying to do this podcast for a little while now and get it actually recorded.
Our 6-3 schedule.
I know. It's so hard during wedding season. Like, I always will front load content and record a bunch like in the spring. And then all through wedding season, I'm like, we're not going to be able to nail down anybody to try to get a recording. So that way we have stuff to go through the wedding season. And then now we're finally back in the fall. Like, okay, now we can sit down again and catch our breath.
Yes.
It is very, very good. All right. Tell me first, who are Ira and Lucy? Is there a story behind the name?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people, when they meet Jonathan and I, they're like, so who's Ira and who's Lucy? And we're like, I know it's confusing. I'm actually Heidi and this is Jonathan. It's named after Jonathan's great-grandparents, Ira and Lucy. And really kind of how that came about is when we first started, we weren't a full planning and design company. We really were a vintage rental company. So we were the first company in Idaho to do like old sofas and chandeliers and antiques and, you know, all those really kind of niche like items that we see everywhere now. And I remember too thinking like, this is so crazy that this hasn't already happened in Idaho. Like the mason jars and the burl, like it was so popular back then.
Totally.
So, you know, we had a 6-month-old baby and we needed to start a company and it was kind of after the recession. And even though Jonathan and I had college degrees and great background, I'd worked at an ad agency, we couldn't find anything making more than $12 to $16 an hour. Yeah. And we really were like, how are we going to survive? Like, how are we going to make it? So after interviewing actually with a local wedding planner who, you know, wanted me to do this huge job for like $10 an hour with a new baby, I was like, there's just no way. So I stayed up all night and put together this PowerPoint presentation for my husband and his dad. And over like a pancake breakfast, I like showed them this PowerPoint of, I want to start a vintage rental company and let's name it after your great grandparents, Ira and Lucy, because some of the things that we had been given came from them. Like vintage things. So, and we loved this idea with vintage rentals that all of these pieces had a story and a history. And we loved that. And we kind of, you know, played into that of like, your wedding day is a big chapter in your life story. And like, we're really honored to be part of that and infuse your wedding with these special, you know, details. Yeah. And it's what's crazy. I mean, it's amazing to think it's been 12 years now, almost 12 years. And I mean, we were so poor, Anna. Like we delivered rentals in like an old beat up horse trailer. We stored everything in a horse stall because we were living with our in-laws, my husband's dad's place on a farm. We like lined a horse stall with plastic and like stored all these vintage things there. And we would take Jagger, 6 months old, like in a car seat. I remember going to weddings and thinking like, no one's going to take me serious. But we worked really hard. We didn't borrow any money. You know, we got out there and put ourselves out there and started renting these things. And it organically evolved. Like, it was cool because people would rent from us and then go like, why does it look so bad? Like, how do we set it up the way you set it up? And I thought, well, isn't it obvious? Like you do this and this and, realized that I had a gift for designing and styling events that wasn't natural for other people. And then, you know, naturally, as you start designing a wedding, that lends itself into planning a wedding because you're thinking about guest flow and table setup and layout. And soon we were planning weddings. And back then I only charged like $600 to plan a wedding because I wasn't formally trained. Yeah. I didn't even know how to value myself and my services. And it's just crazy because it evolved so quickly and we were in magazines and doing photo shoots and had a staff. And now I charge $18,000 for.
You do?
I do for our biggest package. So it's incredible to think about those days of like
Yeah.
$600 and the hard work and thinking no one would take us serious and, having no loans and just feeling like we're going to make this happen. We're going to figure this
Mhm.
out. So Ira and Lucy evolved. It used to be Ira and Lucy Vintage Rentals. Then we dropped
Mhm.
the vintage rentals. Then we dropped the rentals and just call it
And now it's
Ira
just
and
Ira and
Lucy.
Lucy. It is
And
whatever it is now.
it
You
is
can just think
whatever.
of it
And a lot of
however
people
you
are
want.
like, yeah, people are, do you want to change the name to like your name, like Heidi Elizabeth? Like, and I was like, no, because Ira and Lucy's, it has so much history. And
Yes.
I still love that we are a family business. We're still
Yeah.
small. I don't want to lose that. I love
Yeah.
that. So, um,
Oh.
yeah, so it's evolved a lot, but I love where we are at now. And I love, the really, really hard work it took to get here.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
yeah. Isn't it
but
funny how those, like, such good things, like this beautiful business you now have came out of something where you're like, "Let's just try."
yeah, I think
Yeah.
because, right, we have all of these fears. I'm new in
Yes.
town. I'm not originally from Boise. Like,
Mhm.
I'm from Seattle area. Like, no one's going to like this city girl coming in and trying to
Yep.
tell them, what weddings should be. I wasn't
Right.
formally trained. I,
Yep.
had a baby. I was, stay at home
Yep.
mom, living in my in-laws basement. We, like we weren't fancy. Like we didn't have a fancy trailer. We had like a
Yeah.
beat up horse trailer.
Yeah.
Um, we made our own website. We created our own logo. Like,
Yep.
we didn't even understand contracts. We had to figure that out.
Yep. Yep.
So the thing though is I tell everyone, like my biggest fear, especially midway when I was really doing planning, was that a client would ask me in an interview, like, how many weddings have you planned?
Yeah.
I'm 12 years into this. No one has actually ever asked me that.
Really?
So it's like a good, like,
Yeah.
your insecurities can control your future.
Yeah.
So if you can try to overcome those fears, they're real, they're there,
Yeah.
but just do the hard work, show up, have integrity, value the people that you work with. It's amazing what doors will open for you.
Absolutely. My story is very similar, where my makeup journey started with a quest for mental health, and it was just a passion project of my own, where I was like dealing with some really terrible health issues, and my quality of life was really low. And I was just trying to figure out a hobby that I could do sitting down. And before that, I had worn the wrong color of concealer and literally washed my face with dish soap or hand soap or whatever was available. My mom
Oh
was like,
gosh.
"And Dawn cuts grease, you could use that, and then grab the Lubriderm." Like, that's what I used for years,
Oh
and
my
now I'm
gosh.
like, "Oh my Lanta, how d" But it
Yep.
was one of those things where even though my physical, circumstances weren't changing, my mental circumstances were and how I perceived myself, and then I just started getting some online makeup certificates just for fun because I was like, "This is amazing, and I wanna learn more about this beautiful art just to be able to help my own self." And then it turned into a thing where I was like, "Oh, maybe I could do some weddings someday, like, that would be fun." And I had a thing hop up on, like, the time hop on Facebook where it's like, 5 years
Oh
ago, and
yeah.
it literally was. It was, like, 5 years ago, and I took a selfie because I had done my sister's makeup, and it was not good. It felt really good when I did it then. Um, but it was like, maybe I'll do, makeup for weddings someday. And now here I am with this business sitting in my office with, a webcam pointed at me for making this podcast. And I'm like, how did I get here?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
I think I
it's
love when those things pop up because it's easy to
yep.
forget how you got
Yes.
there because
Yes.
it does move fast. Now, obviously, there's moments where it doesn't feel fast. It feels
Yeah.
very
There's moments where you're
difficult.
crying at night going, oh,
Yes, where you're like, what have I done? This is a mistake. This isn't working. I don't know if I
yes.
like this anymore.
Yep.
But it's great to have those reminders pop up. I think too, as at least I know in my case, as like a planner,
Hmm.
it's hard for us to appreciate and take in the wins
Mm.
because we're immediately thinking of the next
Yes.
wedding.
Yes.
So it's very similar. Like I even learned that in construction. My boss back then told me he'd always been a project manager, and he said, "Heidi, be really careful." He's like, "Learn from me because 40 years have passed and I was always thinking about the next project.
Oh,
And so I never took it in, and I missed a lot of like my children's lives, of
oh,
soaking in like, the client and like that
yeah,
great project. Cause it's really hard. We stack them, right? So
yeah,
like we're already
yes,
planning, I've been planning 2024 weddings, they started 4 months ago.
yeah,
So by the time you start getting to the finish line on these weddings, it's hard because your mind is already feeling consumed with taking up that mental
yes,
space of the next ones. And so I've tried to get really good about pausing and
mm,
reflecting and debriefing with vendors and learning what went well, what we could have done better. And really also having difficult conversations sometimes with vendors or with ourselves of
mm,
like owning a mess up or
yeah,
um, slowing down to do that helps. And then I feel like I can kind of look back at the 12 years and um, think about all the things we've learned and what we appreciate. And, like it's hard to do that. It's hard to do that when we're thinking about the next booking and the next marketing, the
yeah,
next Instagram post, the next, all of
yes,
those things. It's hard training, accounting, all of the things that go into running the business. It's very hard, I think, for us to slow down.
yes. It really is, and I have to always bring myself back to the client experience. And I heard a quote the other day because you and I both have kiddos, and it was said something like, "This is your kid's childhood." And I'm like, "Oh, I see my children's childhood through the eyes of a parent, but for the bride, this is their bridal experience, and we're seeing it through the eyes of a vendor."
Mhm.
And I have to kind of mentally swing my perspective around and try to look at it from the bride's point of view and think, okay, what is she perceiving of this? Because yeah, it's easy to get caught up in everything that goes on and all the text messages and the emails that are in your inbox. And I tell my husband I have 27 tabs open in my brain. It's just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
firing on all cylinders, and then one is over here like, we're maxed out. And
Yep.
so it is hard to sit on that one tab for a little while and soak it in.
hmm For sure.
Yeah,
I think
it's a
too,
lot.
like that's I loved working with you up at Schweitzer. That was so fun.
That was
But
so
like
fun.
perfect example, like think about all of the emails you and I had back and
Yeah.
forth, like
Yep.
leading up to the day,
Yep.
going over looks, making sure the bride was happy, that she was communicating what she wanted. That timeline changes a million times.
Yep. It does.
And then, come go time, a lot of times we check in with the bride early in the morning, usually hair and makeup's on site, right? So I like
Yeah.
hop in, check in with you, make sure everyone has what they need, drop off coffees if I need to.
Yeah.
And then I'm swooped back into setting up, the entire wedding and managing all the
Yeah.
vendors. And so it's always like I'm always bummed at the end that I didn't get to see or talk with the beauty team because I
Oh,
just get in, I see you for 10
yeah.
minutes.
Yep.
And what I love, I always check in with the bride afterwards. And, I love when they give me feedback and let me know what was the
Mm,
experience like, what went
yeah.
well, how did they feel the whole day. And then I love getting to reconnect with the beauty team like
Yeah.
after to say, these things went great. The
Mm,
bride was so happy. She felt gorgeous the whole day. And I'm even looking at the bridesmaids and the mother of the bride and,
yeah.
how are they all feeling? And so I always wish that we had had more time to
Yes.
connect because, it's such a fast paced day.
It is a fast-paced day, and I remember you came in just zook, there she is, and then you're gone. You're like, "Okay, if you
Yep.
need anything, let me know. My number's on the email. Okay, bye." You
Yep.
know?
Yep.
And
Totally.
and you're whisked off, and I feel like I always black out, like, on a wedding day where I'm just, like, get home and I'm like, "What just happened?"
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I get tunnel vision, and I get so invested into what's right in front of me, and that's why I always for certain numbers of bridal parties and up, I always bring an assistant because I'm like, I need someone to keep me on track because otherwise I will totally hone in on exactly what's in front of me, which is a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's
Totally.
hard. It's hard to see some of the other stuff.
I mean, to speak to you, like it's like it's a win on my end, when you think about all that planning that's, 12 to 16 months
Yeah.
before. So
Yes.
a lot of people don't realize, especially when I get to wedding day, I'm
Yeah.
pretty burnt out. Like
Oh, I bet.
everyone's like, it's here. And I'm thinking like, you guys, like, I've been going full throttle for, a long time. So when
Yes.
we get to actual wedding day, I'm pretty exhausted.
Yeah.
and then I have to gear myself up to actually like really produce it. Right. So
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
so it means so much to planners when we can let go of like hair and
Mm,
makeup. We've created the
good.
timeline. We've referred the vendors we trust.
Yeah.
The trials happened, the bride's confident. Like
Yep.
it's, even though we don't get to see you much, like more than
Yeah.
5 minutes, it is such a relief to be able to walk away and go, they're in good hands. Like,
Good.
like they know the timeline. They know when they need to be finished. Like
Yes.
hair is going to hold. They know it's going to be, that day. That one was crazy. Lexi and Jimmy's, we had the whole thunderstorm
I
move
heard about
through.
that because I
Did you
had
hear
left
about
just
all of that?
before.
Okay, that was kind of an exciting wedding. I don't know if people realize like how awesome it was. Did you hear the
Oh,
whole details?
I didn't hear all the
I
details.
feel like we should share it because it was super cool.
Go for it. Yeah,
So,
I
okay.
would love to see how you work with some of these
Oh,
situations.
it was so cool. So, Lexi played hockey in college. She's such a
Yes,
badass,
I
and
know. She's so cool.
like both her and Jimmy are like avid athletes. Like she runs all the time, and like they were adamant about wanting their wedding at the top of the mountain, top
Yeah.
of the mountain,
I'm
which was
surprised they
also
didn't
funny.
walk up.
I know. They're just. I was like, "Are we mountain biking down?" Like, what?
What's
Which is kind of
happening?
funny because
Paragliders? I don't know.
yeah, they're so yeah. So we're on schedule. And it's starting to get kind of windy. And, we had planned pre-ceremony photos with the bridal party and the immediate family.
Yes.
So we get the whole wedding party up the chairlift. We do this amazing epic first look, top of the mountain. And that morning, the team at Schweitzer had let me know, like, hey, heads up, there's a pretty decent possibility we've got a thunderstorm moving in.
Oh my
And just
goodness.
so you know, if our radars show that it's 30 minutes out or 30 miles, we do a mandatory like take shelter. And I was like, excuse me, what?
That's
And
right.
she's like, and after that, if it doesn't clear, then we have to evacuate the mountain. Everyone has to go to the bottom of the mountain because it's too high of a risk of, being struck by lightning kind of a situation. So I was like,
Oh
oh,
my
okay.
goodness.
So they're like, keep doing what you're doing. We're watching it. We'll let you know. So I'm like, guests are starting to arrive at the bottom of the mountain. They're supposed to have this champagne entrance. They're going to, drink their champagne up the chairlift. All these things are scheduled and planned.
Yes.
Meanwhile, the clouds are getting darker,
Oh my
the
gosh.
wind's picking up. And we're doing photos, and they come to me and they're like, Heidi, it's here. Like, I'm sorry, but we have to call mandatory. We're sending everyone off the mountain. And they're like, but we're going to give you like 10 more minutes. Like, get your photos done. So it's one of those moments as a planner, you're like, we have to make a call here. So
Mhm.
I go up to Lexi and Jimmy and I'm like, okay, you guys, here's your option. We either do the ceremony right now without any guests because you have got both of your parents up here. We have the priest and we have the bridal party. We can get you married right here. I know how important it was to you to get married at the top of the mountain. And
Yes.
then I will keep all the guests because they can't come up now. Like they're not allowed to get on the chairlift. And then we can repeat the ceremony at the bottom because Schweitzer was amazing. They had already set up an indoor ceremony
Yeah.
space just in case.
Oh.
I was like, or, we just tell everyone that you already got married at the top of the mountain and they, missed the ceremony. And Lexi and Jimmy being who they are, which I love, Lexi was like, let's do it. Let's do it. And I was like, okay, let's do it. We had like 5 minutes. So you see, everyone's getting evacuated off the mountain. Like the chairlift is now empty. I've got people radioing me from the bottom of the lift, like, guests want to know what's going on. And I'm like, move them to the ceremony space, like move them inside. The wind's picking up, clouds are moving in. Schweitzer's like, you got to get like, let's go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I line them up. I get them down the aisle. We put all like the wedding party in the front row. We had the videographer and photographer ready. And we did the ceremony with just the bridal party and the parents.
Oh.
And it ended up
Oh.
being so cool. And like
Oh.
we have no regrets about it. Like it was
Oh.
awesome. We did like a
That's
big group
awesome.
photo. And then we had to immediately get them on the chairlift as fast as we could. She wanted the photos of like them going down the chairlift that said just married. We were able
Yes.
to make that happen. And like it's just surreal as you're going down the mountain because it's getting windier. and it's starting to rain and we're like, oh my gosh. So then we just winged it and we had no sound, no, like it was like not in the prettiest room and we just repeated the ceremony inside. And
Oh,
right as they were walking down the aisle inside, it just started torrential downpour. Like the gutters were full of water. I mean,
wow.
it was
Wow.
it was so cool though. But I was like, oh my gosh, her hair and makeup held through all of that.
Oh, good. Yay.
I was like, look at us.
Look at that. We did it.
Anna would
Isn't
be
that's
so
always
proud
a
of her
good sign.
work.
Yes. That's always
Yeah,
a good sign.
it was really cool. I'll have to send you the full gallery because it just ended up being really, really cool.
Yes. Yes, I've seen some of the photos that Lexi has put on Instagram, but, but I didn't know the story behind it.
Yeah, it was awesome. And they were both like, Heidi, this was just better than what we could have ever imagined. Like, it was better this way. But again, that's what helps when you prep your couple to
Yes.
just say, look, we can plan and plan and plan.
Yep.
Inevitably, something will not go as planned. There's so many
Yes.
things out of our control. And if you
Yes.
can just go with it and be flexible, sometimes the plan C ends
Yes.
up being way better than plan A and
Right.
memorable and incredible. It was awesome. It was
Mm.
very cool.
I
So,
and I talk to brides about that too, about setting expectations when it comes to their beauty services, but also their wedding day. And I feel like the wedding day is put on such a pedestal where it's like, I want it to be this perfect day. And I always have to say, like, well, what does that mean? Like, what does that
mhm.
mean to you? Because like for Lexi and Jimmy, they had a vision and they were able to take snippets of that, but it was ended up being twisted and turned into something that was better than they even expected.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
And
I
that's
love
I'm like,
that.
don't get caught up in all those little details. Like, yeah, they're special and they're fun, but like
Mhm.
ultimately the day is about marrying your best friend
Yes.
and feeling beautiful and happy and joyful and being surrounded by your closest friends and family. That's really what it's about. It's not about the monogram napkins and,
Yeah.
like it's not about all of those things.
Yes. Even though those are very fun details.
Yes, we love those fun
I
details.
love those fun details.
Yeah.
I know, and I've talked about this on previous podcasts, but, like, my husband and I got married, we had a budget of $4,000 because that's just, we paid for it ourselves, and we did the dress, the food, the everything for that price, and that was 12 years ago, but we were kind of like you, we lived with family for, like, the first year and a half until we could get an apartment with financial help from
Yep.
it worked, but we didn't need all those little elements with, the monogrammed, etcetera. It ended up just being just fine.
Yeah. I mean, our Jonathan and my wedding, our wedding was like we had a $10,000 budget and
Yeah.
like 3 of it went to medical bills. I mean, we were like, because I was having health problems back then.
Oh,
But I still like our wedding was incredible. Like it was still so special. And,
yeah,
like I couldn't afford a planner. And,
right.
my family had to step in and do all of that. And they were wonderful and helped and were happy to do so. But, that's what I let people know is like they missed so many moments because they were so
Mm,
busy setting up and doing things. And so,
yeah,
I try to explain to people like when they break down a budget, whether it's, now kind of in Idaho, I let most people know kind of an average wedding budget starts at $40,000.
yes.
Like people don't realize how fast that goes.
Mhm.
And that's even with DIYing things and, like a
Yep,
barbecue type catering and,
yep,
a $3,000 photographer and hair and makeup is only for the bride. Like it goes so
yeah,
fast. But I always try to encourage them, even if they can't afford like our lower package, but like find a planner, like a professional one that knows what they're
yeah,
doing, like a
yeah,
solid, but it's worth it so that everyone really can be in the moment
yes,
because it is hard to do that without a planner.
absolutely. Yes, and I find myself often in that role of, helping them plan their morning, and I always talk with brides, especially during my Zoom consultation, like, "What do you want your bridal morning to look like?" And they often tell me, "I want it to be relaxed. I don't wanna be running around. I don't want to be dealing with Aunt so and so's XYZ, and we always talk about what are those relationships that might be rough, is the
Yeah.
mother of the groom feeling a certain way about today? Does she have certain expectations? Are there things that I can do to help you be your energy guard and kind of, like, shelter you and just put a little
Yeah.
just hazmat, like, don't touch,
Yep.
um, just
For
kind of
sure.
around them to make sure that they're saving their mental energy for their day.
Yeah, I find, a lot of couples who don't wanna pay for a planner, they'll lean into their vendors, the DJ, the
Yeah.
photographer, hair and
Yep.
makeup artist to help try to run their timeline, but those vendors don't want to do that. Like, you wanna focus on doing makeup. The
Right.
DJ
Yeah.
wants to focus on, the flow of the event, great music, the
Yeah.
photographer, like, they
Yeah.
don't want to be answering all those questions and running that
Yeah.
timeline, and, um, yeah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what wedding planners do.
Mm.
And it's really hard for us to, like, show that on Instagram. You see
Yes.
beautiful photos,
Yes.
but, like, how do we sell our role and
Right.
everything that we do to get
Right.
those photos? So
Absolutely.
that's for sure. That's a big challenge because it's really hard to show that.
Yeah. Do you feel like there are certain misconceptions that you frequently have to, um, what's the right word for it? Like clarify with clients?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot. I think, especially so I would kind of consider us, we're not like your base planner. Like, we're
Yeah.
not your day of planner. I mean,
Nope.
occasionally we do that, but we're not that, but we're not like your uber luxury, right? Like what you're
Okay.
seeing in like California or
Right.
Italy, you're not seeing like these, $500,000 weddings.
Right.
Our range, now at this point, our weddings are typically between 60 and $250,000 weddings.
Yeah.
Now, coming from a girl who had a $10,000 wedding,
Yeah.
$250,000 seems to me very luxury, like, right?
Yes.
So, um, but there's a lot of misconceptions in that kind of budget range.
Sure.
So, first, in your higher end, I tell every client, regardless of budget, a couple things. It's a partnership.
Mm.
So, as your planner and your designer, it is not a my way or the highway. This
Right.
involves them. My job is to guide them, give them professional sound advice,
Yeah.
to refer vendors who I believe are the best fit for them. And that has
Yes.
to do with personality, logistics, like how do they function as that
Mhm.
vendor? Are they great about following up? What's their personality like? Are they off-putting? Are they super bubbly? Are
Yeah.
they straight to the point? What their price point is, what their style, like, there's all these different
Yes.
factors that go into referring vendors. And so I tell them, my job is to also be honest. Like, if I've had a bad experience with a vendor, I let them know that. But I also say, like, look, ultimately it's your decision who choose as your vendor. My job is to give you those options, but it's your choice. I'm never going to force a
Mhm.
vendor on you. Or if you pick someone I don't feel confident in, I'm still going to be professional. I'm still going to
Right.
work with them. I'm going to still do my best. So, and then talking about, like, even especially the higher end, like, you can't just disappear as a couple
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
expect to just snap your finger and your wedding happen. You still have to participate and make
Yes.
choices and decisions. And I can do a lot, but you
Yes.
can't disappear on me. Also, we have fired clients in the past, and I
Mm.
let people know up front a couple things. The couple are my clients, not the parents.
Ah.
So even if parents are paying for the wedding or
Mm.
contributing to the wedding, I will always default to the couple,
Yes.
because otherwise I could get myself into a situation where I'm planning 6 different versions of a wedding, and I'm
Yes.
not going to do that.
Yes.
Um, and that has helped mitigate a lot of drama and stress
Yeah.
for sure, is if I establish that boundary at the very beginning. That's
I
also,
imagine.
a fine line of also telling parents, like, we value your input, and what your wishes and goals and hopes are very important to us as well. And we will absolutely take that into consideration. But, we're not going to get in the middle
Mm.
of that battle. Sometimes that can happen. And it's hard too, because for couples, if their parents are paying for it, right, they feel bad. if they want
Right.
something different than what their
Right.
parents want. And the other thing really is if clients just get nasty, if
Mm,
they want to treat vendors like hired help, you're the help, and they don't see you as a person.
mm,
Um, and they want to, dictate and demand how things are done, like that doesn't work with me.
right.
So, we try to be really good about that. We tell all of our clients, like, if you're ever frustrated with us or feel like you're not getting what you need, or like, tell us, like, let's work through it. But, yeah, we have had a couple clients where it was not good and just said,
Mm,
we're going to break ties. But we try to be really clear about that and set that expectation from the beginning. I think people think planners are all about expensive decorations because they think, the planner's going to push this on me because she's going to make a ton of money from it.
okay.
So there's a fine line too of explaining to people, like, our job is to design a wedding that fits the couple.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's why we're really clear about setting a budget up front. I do
Mm,
not like vague budgets
yeah.
because you can get into some really messy areas when someone thinks that you're pushing really expensive things on them, like as if you're taking advantage of, their income.
Right.
And so we, regardless of that budget, whether it's 60,000 or 250, right out of the gate, we set a clear budget and talk about expectations. And so
Okay.
that we really can build that confidence and that trust with the client that
Yes.
we're not out to take advantage of anyone.
Right.
But we are going to set realistic expectations about, the budget. So for example, like even makeup. So
Yeah.
it's really fascinating, when you're building a budget and someone says, okay, let's put in $400 for makeup. And then our question is, okay, is this just for the bride? Or is this for the bridal party? Is this for moms? And who's paying for it?
Yeah.
So like even that just becomes a big conversation. They're like, "Oh, no, no, no. I think we do want to pay for hair and makeup for all the bridesmaids, but like maybe not." And I'm like, "Well, that's the big difference between $400 and 8 bridesmaids and 2 moms or 4
Yeah.
moms, if they're split
Yeah.
families." Like that can go from $400 to like a $3,000 budget for
Yeah.
hair and makeup. So
Yes.
we try to really have those realistic conversations at the beginning. I think when you start diving into that, and then your clients really learn, like, wow, Heidi really has the experience. She knows what she's talking about. We
Yes.
trust her. We know she's not taking advantage of our budget. She's very clear about it.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of those misconceptions about a planner, or people thinking we just run a timeline and tell people where to
Oh.
go when. A planner
Oh,
does so much more than that.
yes. Yes.
So
When I've seen some of your mood boards and things like that where I'm like, "Holy cow, this is a work of art, and that took a long time to put together."
yeah. And I mean, again, so a lot of companies, like, they'll have a principal planner and like a
Yeah.
principal designer, like they'll have
Yeah.
big teams. My passion is the design side. I'm a great
Yeah.
planner, but I love the design. For me, it's like too hard to separate the two roles because they
Yeah.
cross over
Yes.
so much. I've
Yes.
often thought, like, if I could just hire, an assistant planner, I think I could with like some of, the back and forth emails and the organization and the logistics, but so much of it just lends itself to both.
Yeah.
So, and I tell people too, like, if you're wanting, quote, just a planner, someone to manage your vendors, manage your timeline, um, those kinds of things, like, don't hire me. Like, I am not cheap, but the people that hire me value design
Yeah.
and a really well-run tight ship with logistics and planning.
Yeah.
And if design isn't that big of a deal to you, find another planner who's, not
Right.
going to charge you what I am, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, and you've traveled all over for clients, right?
Yeah, I mean, so we like this year was pretty so we were at Schweitzer, North Idaho, and
Yeah.
then we had 2 weddings in Park City, Utah. We had
Oh,
1 in McCall and then 4 in Boise.
oh
So,
my goodness.
but
Yeah, so
I
you're
think
kind of in a similar area.
yeah, so I think, I love the Rocky Mountain region.
Yeah.
So, I don't we're certainly happy to travel, but there's its own challenging, logistics and I mean, for example, like Lexi and Jimmy live in Boston.
Yeah.
And they, her family has property in North Idaho, and they wanted to get married in Schweitzer. And
Yeah.
one of Jimmy's first questions to me was, why would I hire you? You're in Boise. Why wouldn't
Yeah.
I just hire a planner from Coeur d'Alene?
Right.
And I was like, that's a great question. Like, let's talk about that. There are some great planners, as you know, in Coeur d'Alene that are fully capable of executing a great wedding.
Mhm.
I told Jimmy, and I also, so one of the things too that I learned is that I used to be kind of an all you can eat buffet planner. So I
Mm.
didn't have a time limit on my services. We
Mm.
said like we're a full service planner, designer, production team. I found myself having no life,
Yeah.
working hundreds and hundreds of hours for clients. And then when you
Yes.
figure out what that hourly comes out to be, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm making $4 an hour.
Yes.
Like it was like for
Yes.
as much as I'm working.
Yep.
So a couple years ago, my biggest package, I say, I have 100 hours. Anything over that is an additional hourly fee.
Yeah.
And so that helps keep our clients really accountable for time management and decision making.
Yes.
So when you step into a new market, obviously the client's going to go, well, I'm worried about the 100 hours. If you've never worked at Schweitzer, how much of your time is going to finding new vendors you've never worked with versus being
Totally.
familiar with your own market? All
Totally.
great, valid questions.
Yes.
So what I tell them is, I've been doing this for 12 years. I know what I'm doing. I've been well connected in the industry. It is super important to me to work with local vendors in whatever city we go to. I'm not
Yeah.
going to bring like Boise vendors up to Coeur d'Alene.
Right.
I think that's just kind of a big no-no as a planner coming into new industry. If you
Mm.
want to make great connections, you need to respect the local vendors. Now, certainly
Right.
if any of those vendors are not a good fit for the client, then we will
Sure.
certainly bring in new ones.
Yes.
But I try to explain, with my experience, I'm still very efficient and I know what questions to ask and I know how to expedite things and move things fast. Likewise, there are many times like looking for rentals, I won't hit the clock button for the client. If I know it's going to take me 4 hours to really vet out a new vendor, I'm not charging
Yeah.
it to the client.
Yeah.
Just as like an integrity thing of like, if I want clients to be willing to take me to a new area,
Yeah.
I don't want them feeling like they're losing out on a ton of hours because I'm so new to that space.
Totally.
So there's like a balance.
Uh-huh.
And, I also tell them too, like, you have to want me. Like, you have to want my design style, my planning style, like, and how we function together in a relationship and a partnership
Mhm.
to feel like it's worthwhile to hire me versus someone in the area.
Right.
And what I love, Jimmy and I would joke all along that he's like, I gave you such a hard time at the beginning. And he's like, I can't imagine having hired anyone else. You're like family
Mm.
and you executed perfect. And we even came in a little bit under hours,
There you
so,
go.
so it's always kind of tricky. So, I love the Rocky Mountain region. I'm a Pacific Northwest girl. I'm from
Yes.
Western Washington. I have a
Yes.
ton of family still in Western Washington. Jonathan's from Pullman,
Yeah.
Washington. We have a ton of family in the Portland area. So
Mm.
we're happy to also take weddings there because we know those spaces. We know quite a few vendors in
Yeah.
that area too. If someone, candidly asked me to go plan a wedding in California, I probably wouldn't take it. It's so saturated down there
Yeah.
that, I would encourage them really probably to take a planner in that area.
Yeah.
But it all depends on the connection with the client. If I fall in love with the clients
Yeah.
and we're such a good fit, like I'll go anywhere and make it
Yes.
happen for them. So
Yes.
long
Absolutely.
answer.
No, it's good. Walk me a little bit through your client process. So someone books with you. What's kind of the first step of planning the wedding for them?
Yeah. So, first and foremost, most of our clients find us on Instagram or word
Yeah.
of mouth, which I love. And we always require a pre-consultation form be filled out first. So that's on our website. And Jonathan and I are graphic and web designers. So it helps
Perfect.
that we can manage our website.
Yes.
And I love that questionnaire because it really gives me an immediate look into what the client's goals are and out of the gate, like if we're a good fit or not.
Yes.
Then, we email, we text. I can't tell you, like one of my last weddings, I think we pretty much planned the whole thing via Instagram, DMing. But then I usually like to do like a video call because probably 80% of our clients are from out of state.
Yeah.
So we do a Zoom call, we connect and see how that goes. Once we move into contract, I set up a custom planning dashboard that immediately goes into budget first. We always
Mm.
want budget really established out of the gate.
Mhm.
We review that with them. We give them, we kind of do like a shared Zoom call where I share my screen and I walk
Yeah.
them through how to use the dashboard so they're not feeling super foreign to it. And again, that establishes, it's really important to me that our clients follow my systems because I
Mm.
have to juggle so
Yes.
much. So if you can imagine, let's say eight couples
Yes.
texting me, emailing me,
Yes.
calling me,
Yes.
Instagram, DMing me.
Yep.
That is a ton of information and
Yes.
decisions and ideas and then all the vendor like it's a ton of information. So if clients don't follow my protocols, like I can't keep track of it all. And
Yeah.
so when I show them like, hey, like we're not doing Google Docs, we're not doing Excel spreadsheets, we're not, all like, yes, we've got text threads and all of those things, but it's really ideal to get this into our system so I
Yeah.
can manage it all. So I
Yep.
candidly, everyone, kind of knows I use IO Planner. Um, it's a phenomenal program. Yes, it's out there. Brides can like get it without a planner. It's a modified version than what the professionals have.
Oh.
I can tell you a little warning though, even if you have access to it, it's not the same as having a planner. Run it. But I customize that each for our clients and really build out a framework. And it's beautiful. It's got a full checklist by either category or due date. And
Mm.
we start going through it and everything's on there and it syncs to your phone. It's web
Wow.
based. So I love that, some of my clients are doctors and
Yeah.
they are not working on their wedding until 1 a.m.
Yep.
And I get all these notifications. I wake up in the morning, I can see on my phone, they've been working on something and I can jump right in.
Yeah.
So it's incredible. It's a great tool. But we move into that and then I immediately start jumping into gathering really design ideas. I watch my clients
Mm.
really close on Instagram. I love to learn about them. Like, are they in love with their dog? Like, is their dog their
Yeah.
world? Do they love to go
Yeah.
hiking and travel? Are they foodies? Do they love music? Are they shyer and don't like to really be the center of attention? Are they a party queen who loves to go hard and is at clubbing? Like all of those. What does their house
Yeah.
look like? What's their living room like? How do they dress? All of those things
Yes.
I watch. And that's a big part of how I design their wedding. And,
Um,
then we move into vendors and
yeah.
that budget management is a huge, huge, it's a moving target. So
Mhm.
it's just a lot of work, like as you're getting your priority vendors in and, building that into the budget, making sure the biggest things are taken care of first and building in buffer with the budget. Um, Yeah, and we start building out the production timeline. It's a big process. It's a lot of back and forth. We do full kind of design meetings, even if they live out of state. We present design boards and go through it. I will mail them, fabric swatches, and it's a lot. It's
Yes.
kind of hard to sum it up, but really hands on. We do like weekly check-in calls, even if it's for 20 minutes. We hop on Zoom and say, "Hey, you guys, this is the focus for this week. Let's hash these things out."
Yeah.
So we really make it manageable.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So much good information.
It's a lot. Like, people are like, how do you break it down? I'm like, this is a really big conversation.
Yes. Oh,
But
totally.
yeah.
Well, my last question for you is just for advice for a bride who might be looking for a wedding planner. Are there certain key items that she should be looking for, or like how would you give a bride advice on how to decide who to hire?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say really across all vendor choices,
Mm.
couples should be very careful um, booking anyone. So, right, most of them find us off of Instagram,
Sure.
right? So, partially because in the wedding industry, things are moving so fast all the time that it's really hard for us to update our websites. Like we do that in the winter, right?
Yeah.
Our galleries finally. So really you're seeing our most recent portfolio essentially on Instagram or TikTok.
Yes.
So what's sneaky or tricky about that is that a lot of couples cannot distinguish between like a photo shoot or a styled shoot and a real wedding.
Okay.
Or they're only seeing 3 of the 200 photos of a gallery.
Yes.
And so, right, obviously as vendors, we're trying to show our best work, but it can be really deceiving.
Yes.
So I can see, for example, like a makeup artist who in a photo shoot, the makeup was flawless. It held beautifully. It photographed beautifully. But at a real wedding, maybe that makeup artist was 2 hours behind. The lashes kept falling off the girls. The foundation 4 hours in was super creased and cakey and not looking good. Those kinds of things, that's hard for couples to know just by looking at this beautiful one shot on Instagram. So styled. So I tell them when you interview a planner, a photographer, a makeup artist, how much of their portfolio are real weddings?
That's
there's
true.
a lot out there that have majority styled shoots.
Really?
And that is not the same as a real wedding at all.
That's true.
So especially with photographers. So same with planners. There's a lot of new planners out there and I get it. We were new, right? $600, we were doing these photo shoots. And again, like a lot of those planners don't have real experience or the experience they have is very, very minimal or the logistics weren't complicated or, so I think first and foremost, every couple needs to ask that of your portfolio, how much of these were real weddings? How long have you been doing this? Talking about like logistics, like, are you familiar with a tented wedding? Have you ever done a wedding with, tight space or, there's a lot of those kind of questions they don't know to ask. So I think that's important to find out really what the professional experience is versus kind of those candid, like styled moments. I think they need to be, ask questions about pricing structure. Is there an hourly limit? Is it a flat rate? Is there a design fee? And how is that pricing structure established? Like what experience do they have to determine those prices?
Yeah.
I think a lot of it too has to do with like organization and expectations. So if for example, if a client's a doctor and they're like, I have no time to be planning a wedding. I really don't. Like I need you to take the lead. Like I'll try to make decisions when you need me to, but like what the relationship's going to be. So like if a client's like, Heidi, I want to be able to text you all times of the day and I expect an answer within 20 minutes. I'm like, I'm not your girl. There are planners that are all for that for you, but that's not me. Like, I try to have hours. I have other clients, or another question is, how many weddings do you do a year? Are you a mass production planning company? Do you kind of rinse and repeat the same thing, which for some clients is totally perfect.
Right.
They can see a wedding and they're like, I love how she did that. I love the chairs. I want an arch just like that. I'm cool with that. I don't really care about this, this, and this. That's awesome. Go with a less expensive planner that knows that venue, that can rinse and repeat that. And that if that works for you, awesome.
Yes.
If you're a couple that's like, I want really unique, I want it designed specific to my fiance and I. We have guests, like 80% of our guests are flying in from out of state. I need help with guest management, transportation, room blocks, like a lot more complex. Ask those questions of, how experienced is the planner with those dynamics? Yeah. There's a lot.
There is a lot.
It's kind of hard.
No, that's so great. And I appreciate you diving into that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think too, like ask other vendors what their experience is with that planner.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Because other vendors are pretty candid.
Yeah. Yeah, we know.
You guys know.
We're like, "Oh, her."
Like, oh
Great.
my gosh, it was a disaster. She was
It was a
chaos,
disaster.
or, oh, this planner was great. They ran a tight ship. They truly cared about the bride and groom. They cared about us as vendors.
Yeah.
Those kind of conversations I think are good.
Yes, absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
Heidi, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah. Thanks
I
for having me.
appreciate it. Absolutely.
We should hang out more. We'll have so much more time this winter.
I know.
Oh,
That
I would
sounds good.
love to talk with you sometime about, like, the planner's perspective with,
Oh,
like, beauty teams,
yeah.
because we have noticed we've had a real, real hard time with, hair and makeup artists
Mm,
on, like, the business side of things and how they
okay.
run their business, and I think that a lot of hair and makeup artists would really benefit from hearing what we're hearing on our end with what
Sure.
that looks like, invoicing, contracts, timeline building, all of those things, not just, how is it done day of, but everything before that is
Sure.
so important.
It is so important. Well, we will end this recording and we can dive into that. That sounds good to me.
It sounds fun. Well, you look
Alrighty.
beautiful.
Oh, thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. All right. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Talk Bridal to Me. I hope you have a day where you truly feel beautiful. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.